The film begins with a psychiatrist named Miranda Grey, who is talking with a patient considered criminally insane, Chloe. During the session, Chloe tells her that until that day, the devil used to visit her in her cell from time to rape her. While they talk, she expresses how frustrating it is that everyone considers her crazy and nobody believes her story. However, Miranda dismisses her and ends the session, which enrages Chloe. After that, Miranda goes to another part of the psychiatric hospital to speak with her boss, Doug, who is also her husband. Apparently, Miranda has been working with Chloe for some time, but she has not made any progress since the patient remains just as delusional. Doug tries to offer her a new perspective on the case. Then, the couple share a kiss, but they are interrupted by Pete, a fellow psychiatrist who curiously looks very much like a popular superhero. When Doug leaves, Pete takes advantage of the moment to flirt with Miranda and hands her some files. Then, she goes to her office and stays late writing reports about Chloe. When she finishes, she decides to go swimming at a nearby facility before returning home. On her way out, she runs into Dawn, a kind security guard with whom she has a good relationship, and afterwards she crosses paths with Pete, with whom she shares an umbrella. From the way they interact, it is clear that Pete is interested in her. On the way back home, there is a storm that makes visibility difficult. As she moves forward, she discovers that the road is blocked by a sinkhole, so she is forced to take another route that crosses a bridge. She calls her husband to tell him that she will arrive soon, but the call suddenly cuts off. Suddenly, she sees a woman standing in the middle of the road, which forces her to sharply turn the steering wheel. Then she approaches the woman, who has a large wound in her chest. Believing that she needs help, she tries to take her to the car, but when she touches her, the woman bursts into flames. The next thing we see is Miranda waking up in an observation cell in the same hospital where she worked. She panics, which forces the staff to intervene to restrain her. She only calms down when Pete arrives to speak with her in private. According to him, she has been there for 3 days, during which she suffered several seizures and has only now regained consciousness. Pete asks her if she remembers anything, but she can barely recall what happened after leaving work that night. She tries to tell him that she saw a woman on the bridge, but he does not give it any importance. Then Pete informs her that her husband, Doug, is dead, and that Miranda has been accused of murdering him upon arriving home that night. The news provokes a violent reaction in her, which forces the staff to sedate her. As she loses consciousness, she has flashes of memory of a bloody scene. The next day, she joins the other patients in the recreation area, now surrounded by people who used to be her own patients. There she meets Chloe again, who tells her that now she will know what it feels like to tell the truth and have nobody believe you. Before leaving, Chloe hands her a torn page from a newspaper where the news of Doug's murder appears, supposedly committed by Miranda. That night, already in her cell, she hears breathing outside. Then she sees the glass fog up and an invisible hand writes, "You are not alone." Trying to maintain logic, she convinces herself that she is dreaming and curls up in a corner. Strangely, the next day arrives immediately, and a nurse enters to give her her usual medication. Later, Miranda showers with the other patients for the first time. During that moment, she begins to hear sinister whispers. Suddenly, she sees the girl from the bridge again, which frightens her and makes her move nervously through the crowd, causing confusion among the other women. As the girl approaches her, she begins to repeatedly cut Miranda's arm, which causes panic and makes the other patients flee. The staff immediately rush in to bandage her wounds, concluding that she inflicted them on herself with a scalpel that, somehow, she managed to obtain. Pete enters to examine her and talk to her, although he still thinks she is delirious. Trying to understand what is happening, Miranda asks him a series of questions about the relationship between them. Pete admits that he once wanted to have an affair with her, and she also acknowledges that she wanted to be with him, but that nothing ever happened because Doug was present. Suddenly, Miranda takes him by surprise by telling him that, now that her husband is no longer there, they could be together. But Pete replies that, for the moment, he only wants to help her get better. Later that same day, Miranda calls Phil, another psychiatrist at the center. She informs him that, due to her personal involvement with Pete, it would be most appropriate for another doctor to take charge of her case, but Phil coldly rejects this suggestion. That same day, Miranda receives a visit from Teddy, her lawyer, who informs her that the court hearing of her case will be held the following week. Since all the evidence is against her, her only chance of being released would be to plead temporary insanity. Miranda is horrified to hear this and tries to convince Teddy that she is not crazy and that she did not kill her husband, but he does not believe her. Then the police chief, Ryan, who is also Doug's best friend, enters the room, while Pete watches everything closely. Ryan tries to question her about the details of the murder, but soon sets professionalism aside and demands an explanation for why she killed his best friend. Then he shows her photographs of the crime scene so that she can see the brutality of the murder. As she looks at the images, fresh blood begins to come out of her wounded arm, and when she removes the bandages, she reveals that the words, "You are not alone," are carved into her skin. This worsens her situation, since similar inscriptions were found in her bedroom at the crime scene. Miranda panics and the medical staff sedate her again. While she is unconscious, she has more memory flashes of what happened that night, but in reverse order. First, she sees herself killing Doug with an axe, and then it rewinds to the moment when she was on the bridge, trying to help the girl in the rain. Everything seems to indicate that the young woman possessed her and forced her to murder her husband. The next day, Pete takes Miranda to see Phil, who is now the director of the center. With tears in her eyes, Miranda admits that she remembers being present the night of the murder, but claims that she was not alone. Then she sees a photograph in Phil's office and takes it. To her surprise, it is the same girl she saw on the bridge, but Phil assures her that this is impossible, since it is his daughter, Rachel Parsons, who committed suicide 4 years earlier. That night, back in her cell, Miranda speaks into the air, asking if the entity that has been tormenting her is the ghost of Rachel Parsons. If the answer is yes, she asks her to open the door of her cell. Miraculously, the door opens immediately, so Miranda takes advantage of the opportunity to leave and walk through the corridors. Shortly afterward, she sees the ghostly figure of a young woman passing through a wall. In her attempt to escape, Miranda steals a screwdriver that she finds unattended and uses it to break into Pete's office, where she steals his keys. While checking the desk, the computer turns on and shows that he had been searching for information about the supposed suicide of Rachel Parsons. Another open tab shows images from the security cameras in the isolation cell, in which the ghost of Rachel is seen staring directly at the camera. Remembering that Chloe is locked in isolation, Miranda runs to help her and enters a corridor with rapidly flickering lights. She approaches Chloe's cell and finds her being attacked by a figure who has the image of a girl wrapped in flames tattooed on his chest. Frightened, Miranda runs away screaming, which draws the attention of 2 staff members who immediately restrain her. Afterward, she is taken to consult with Pete, to whom she tells about the tattooed man she saw in Chloe's cell. She is also convinced that Rachel Parsons did not commit suicide, but was murdered. However, Pete believes that she is delirious and leaves frustrated. The next day, Chloe is finally released from isolation, and Miranda approaches her to apologize for not having believed her stories before. Chloe hugs her, but warns her that the devil told her that now he would go after her. As a consequence of having escaped from her cell the night before, Miranda is transferred to an isolation cell. That night, the lights begin to flicker, and the ghost of Rachel Parsons suddenly appears to attack her. The security guards see everything through the surveillance cameras and run toward her cell. However, when they arrive, Miranda quickly knocks them down and steals their keys. Then she begins her escape through the corridors and stairways of the center, while the staff desperately search for her. Then she decides to hide in the pool area and dives to the bottom, to conceal herself in the darkness of the water. Just as the guards move away, she manages to hold back a scream thanks to the muffling effect of the water. When she emerges from the pool, with the lights already turned off, she sneaks toward the lobby, where she runs into Don, the kind security guard. She silently begs him not to reveal her location. When the others leave, Don even gives her his car keys so that she can escape. Finally, she reaches the parking lot and flees in Don's car. Surprisingly, the ghost of Rachel Parsons goes with her in the back seat and manipulates the brakes, causing her to almost crash into a passing truck. Just when she breathes a sigh of relief, the car begins to head straight toward a sinkhole, but it stops just in time before falling in. After that, Miranda goes to the house she used to share with her husband and finds all the lights on when she arrives. Upon entering, she hears Doug's voice begging for his life and sees him bloodied and mutilated. She also sees herself wielding an axe and finishing him off. After this memory, she walks down the blood-stained hallway and enters the bedroom, where she finds herself submerged in a bathtub full of blood. As she sits up and sees herself in the mirror, she screams, as if trying to resist the possession of Rachel's ghost. With all the memories finally restored, she cries while looking at photos of herself with Doug, until she hears Rachel's ghost whisper to her, "Willow Creek." Then she remembers that Doug used to travel there occasionally. She decides to go to Willow Creek, a ranch that belonged to Doug. While exploring the barn, she finds a box with film reels and a trapdoor in the floor that leads to a sinister room in the basement. When she turns on the lights, she is horrified to see a blood-stained bed with straps, boxes of medication, and a video camera pointed directly at the bed. When she reviews the camera files, she finds recordings of Doug forcing himself on a tied-up woman. It turns out that he led a double life, kidnapping, torturing, raping, and murdering women. Suddenly, she hears footsteps upstairs. She tries to hide, but a police officer corners her with a weapon. To the surprise of both, a pair of arms reach Miranda from behind. It is the woman from the video. Her name is Tracy, and she had been reported missing 2 weeks earlier. The press picks up on the discovery and rushes en masse to the police station to interview the police chief, Ryan. Teddy, Miranda's lawyer, and Pete try to defend her, arguing that there is now a legitimate motive for Doug's murder and that she also saved a woman's life. However, Ryan insists that Miranda remains a suspect. Meanwhile, she is held in the interrogation room at the police station and receives a visit from her colleague, Dr. Phil, who is shocked to learn of the atrocities committed by Doug. Miranda calmly explains that she is convinced that Rachel did not commit suicide, but was one of Doug's victims, and she knows this because her ghost has been visiting her. She now believes that Rachel is trying to send another message and tries to convince Pete to help her, but he still refuses to believe her ghost stories. Even so, when he arrives at his office, he begins to investigate tattoos of women in flames. Since Pete does not want to help her, Miranda asks to speak directly with the police chief and presents her theory. The phrase, "You're not alone," indicates that there is a second murderer, someone who also has a tattoo of a woman in flames on his chest. To her surprise, Chief Don seems to believe her and asks her to develop a psychological profile of the possible accomplice. Using her experience as a psychiatrist, Miranda describes the second perpetrator in detail. While she does so, she notices that the chief appears visibly uncomfortable. At that moment, she understands that the profile fits perfectly with Sheriff Ryan and deduces that the only reason he was so receptive to her was to protect himself. Ryan tries to sedate her, but Miranda manages to escape his grip. He chases her, firing wildly as we wonder where everyone else in the station is. A bullet hits a gas pipe. In a psychotic act, the sheriff removes his shirt for no apparent reason, revealing the tattoo. Miranda hides while Ryan grabs a shotgun and begins to roam the place, proudly confessing that Rachel was his first victim along with Doug, and that together they kidnapped, raped, and murdered several women in the area. When he is about to overturn the desk where Miranda is hiding, he sees a silhouette behind a pane of glass and believes it is her. He fires, shatters the glass, and is horrified to discover Rachel's corpse. Overcome with panic, he shoots it several more times, which causes the ignition of the gas accumulated around him and an explosion that engulfs him in flames. As a final blow, Miranda grabs a gun and shoots him in the head. 1 year later, Miranda and Chloe have been discharged from the psychiatric hospital, and the charges against Miranda have been dropped. Chloe thanks her for having helped her, gets into a taxi, and Miranda continues on her way on foot. While she is walking, she sees a child standing in the middle of the street who is run over by a fire truck. However, it is a ghost who is probably also seeking her help. The film ends with a missing child poster that matches the one Miranda has just seen, suggesting that she has another case to solve. The story of Gothica is a psychological thriller that combines criminal mystery with supernatural elements in a fairly effective way. The plot revolves around Miranda Grey, a psychiatrist who wakes up one day without remembering that she has murdered her husband. which launches her into a spiral of confusion, paranormal visions, and dark discoveries about those around her. The most interesting aspect of the narrative is how she gradually unravels the truth through clues that reach her from beyond the grave, revealing a network of crimes far larger and more disturbing than it initially seems. The inclusion of ghosts, especially that of Rachel Parsons, not only serves as a horror device, but also acts as a force that guides Miranda toward the truth. This gives the story a different approach from the typical police thriller, since it blends the realism of criminal investigation with the supernatural, without one overshadowing the other. The revelation that the sheriff himself was an accomplice in the crimes is a very effective twist, because it subverts the viewer's expectations and closes with a climax full of tension. The ending leaves an open door with the appearance of the ghost child, reinforcing the idea that Miranda, now free, may be destined to help other victims from beyond the grave. Altogether, the story maintains a good pace, manages to sustain the mystery until the end, and leaves an unsettling yet satisfying impression.